Our conversation with Bob Pollock from the Extension Service, brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Bob, I'm going to put you on hold here for just a second and then bring you back as a conference in case somebody wants to call in.
Okay.
So here we go. I have to do this in order to get Bob with us here this morning. So I'll punch him down there, punch him back on hold, and then come up here. And you should be back with me right now, right?
I am here.
There you go. You want to call him, talk to Bob, 349, or rather, he's on the 349 number, so you can give me a call at 479-1160, 479-1160 if you have a question for Bob Pollock this morning. Normally at this time of the year, Bob, we're talking about flowers and gardens and all of these wonderful things, and we still should be, but it's just a different conversation this year because of some of the restrictions we have. Within the yard care industry, the garden planting industry, coronavirus having much of an effect on suppliers, have you heard?
Yes, it's kind of selective things. It's, pieces of the puzzle that are maybe getting held up. So some of that supply chain, and it seems like as we continue to move along through this, there are more interruptions, and that's affecting all of agriculture. So we've all, it's been reported about different processing plants and things, various places around the country that have had to shut down because their employees have gotten the virus, and so then that puts a halt on that facility. So that really starts to disrupt the supply chain when you do that, because it's very difficult to hold both crops and animals that need to continue to grow. That becomes very challenging for the farmer, for the producer to do that. It's just like with milk. Those cows have to be milked every single day, and you can't skip that. So the longer this goes, the more disruptions there are. And, and you get into all things, whether it's getting products, and it might be parts that you need. You don't know how long it's going to take from when you order a part to when you might get it shipped to you, because there are some, and it depends on where you are and what it is and who's going to be delivering it as to whether you might have a problem or not, or a delay.
Yeah, we've heard
within their people, the whole thing requires people to make these happen. Yeah. So if people are sick, then that truck may not go.
We've heard, of course, some meat processing facilities that have been shut down, and that might lead to meat shortages, chicken and pork, those sorts of things. And we might not even have considered the fact that, the equipment that the farmers rely upon might not be as available to them as it might have been in the past. And that demand for parts can drive up their price, too. So, even within this, and in the context of our conversations we have each Friday morning, there can be an effect.
There sure can. And then certain parts not all parts of agriculture are deemed essential. So in the one kind of glaring example is if you're a garden center, those were not included in the essential businesses. So you've got people that operate garden centers or call themselves garden centers. If you produce plants, if you're a nursery and produce plants, you're allowed to continue to function. But then how do you sell those plants? If you're wholesale, that's one thing. But if you have a retail garden center, they were not included in this. So you would have had to have applied for an exemption. From what I understand, some people were approved and some people were not approved for that. So that puts them in a very precarious situation. And a lot of these producers, greenhouse, grow the flowers and all those bedding plants in the spring. A lot of them call themselves garden centers, or they have a garden center. That's where their retail piece is, and then of course the production piece is considered essential. So
this is when
that creates some real issues.
They'd make 90% of their money now. Yeah,
absolutely. This is the time. This is make or break, and there has yet to be clarification on that. So people have had to get very creative and very entrepreneurial to survive. Is what that's coming down to.
Hey,
can you sell through somebody else? Can you do door to door, car door to to barn door kind of a situation in order to sell your product, or team up with somebody to do that?
Yeah. Hey, we've got a caller. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay.
I'd like to know the difference between agricultural lime and like garden or lawn lime.
The difference
with potent than the other, or what?
Okay, the difference between agricultural lime and garden lime.
Those you might see them labeled both ways. Essentially, they're the same thing because they're both for agricultural uses to produce plants. But when if we separate production agriculture, so where you'd be growing corn, soybeans, or vegetables for that matter, and then go to the home garden side of it, that's when we start to see things called different names.
One's not more potent than the other. One is not more potent than the other.
No. And so lime is a mined rock. All right. So every source that it's mined from in the ground can vary in the percentage or its ability to neutralize acidity. So two key reasons we apply lime. One is to neutralize acidity, so to make the ground more alkaline or less acidic, so that we can get it in the right pH range to grow whatever crop we're growing. And then the other piece of that is calcium is a nutrient that is contained in lime. And then some sources also have magnesium in that rock. So they'll call that high mag lime, typically. A lot of that lime can come from eastern Pennsylvania because they have rock deposits there that have that magnesium in there as well as the calcium. And then we used to have.
He's got another question, Bob. Let's get his other question. Okay, say that again, sir.
Can you over lime a garden or your lawn?
Can you over lime a garden or your lawn? In other words, put too much on it. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we need to have every crop has a pH range that it will grow in. And that can be fairly broad depending on the plant. So some plants, so blueberry plants need a pH of 4.5 to 5, which is very acidic. So we can overlime that ground very easily. When we get into our vegetable crops in the garden, then if we have a pH of 6.2 to 6.8 is the best range. We can get a little bit outside of that, going up to pH of 7, which is neutral. But so that's where that needs to be. So yes, we can overdo it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And so that's a good call, and that's probably a question that more than one person has out there. What about this lime thing? Because when I grew up, when I grew up, there were guys around the neighborhood who every year, without question, put the lime on the yard. That was what they did.
Yes, and small quantities over time, you can get away with that for a while, but eventually, depending on the type and the quantity you put on, you can keep driving that pH more neutral until we finally get to a point where you're going to start to see a response from plants. And then the other thing is nutrients. We can't show a nutrient chart, but you can look that up. But the soil nutrient chart, nutrient availability based on the pH of the soil. And so that is a moving target. So that's why we try to have these ranges where we keep the pH so that the nutrients are most available. When we get very acidic, then we can get into having toxicities from the metals that are in the soil.
Yeah. Okay. We've got another caller. Good morning.
Morning. I have two questions here. The first question is my garlic. It's growing great. Is there anything I should do? Should I put anything on it, treat it? And the second question is, end of May, June, my root on the bottom of the garlic seems to rot off for some reason.
Okay, a couple of garlic questions for you there, Bob. Did you hear them both?
Yes, I did hear them.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it's really growing well and it has got good green color, you probably don't need to add anything to that at this point. Occasionally, we'll need just a little bit of, if you put on garden fertilizer last fall, like a 10-10-10 or something like that, when you work that in before you planted, then you probably don't need to add anything additional right now. Occasionally, you can top dress that or add a little bit more fertilizer in the spring, depending on how the crop looks. But if it's good, dark green and growing well, I'd leave it alone. And then roots rotting off can be a couple of things. Because of all the wet soils we've had the last several years, where the ground's really just stayed wet, you can get, and depending on your soil and how well it drains and either retains moisture or lets it loose, that if you have a heavier soil that holds more moisture, then you can get some root rot from that now. So that would be a natural cause that we can get root rot. There are some diseases that can cause root rot as well. So the other thing to look at, does the bulb hold up? And there are some, you can get some wireworms or some soil insects that can also chew the roots off. And usually how we can tell the difference between disease and insect damage there is you'll still have a lot of nice roots, and they'll be kind of creamy colored roots, and you might just have some of them gone if it's an insect. But usually with the disease, then we'll start to see they'll start to melt down, they'll start to decay, and they'll turn a darker color if they're rotting, if the whole thing's rotting. Okay. So there is some disease stuff. And if that starts to happen again this year, please send a sample. You can bring, hopefully by the end of June, the office will be open that you could bring a sample in. But if not, you can always send a sample to our plant disease clinic at Penn State. And then we can sort out whether we've actually got a disease. And in the home garden, really what we would need to do is rotate, get out of that soil, move to another location to grow that garlic for the next cycle.
Okay, very good. We're out of time. Thank you. Thank you for your call. Hey, Bob?
Yes.
Right after the news at 8 o'clock, can I call you back? Because somebody asked me to ask you a question, and I want to do that.
Oh, sure.
Or you can call me back, okay?
I'll call you back right after the news.
Very good. Excellent.
All right.
Good. Excellent.
All right.
Good.